What if the most feared alpha in the wildlands, the one who doesn't touch, finds his only salvation in the scent of a terrified runaway? Stay tuned for a story of fate, fury, and a bond that breaks all the rules. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to join the pack. Chapter 1. The cold wind of the Northern Peak tore through the black pines like a hungry spirit. Lena stumbled through the blizzard-whipped trees, her breath coming in ragged, painful gasps, her thin tunic clinging to her skin. Thorns tore at her calves and her lungs burned from the frantic, desperate hours she'd spent running. But she pressed on. Any destination was better than the one she'd escaped. She had crossed the invisible line hours earlier, the one the fearful Omegas warned was absolute, the savage Alpha's territory. No one who crossed the border ever returned. That was the grim hope she clung to. Let them believe the mountain claimed her. Let it try. Every step deeper into the dark, silent woods was saturated with growing dread. Shadows twisted and writhed between the dense canopy. A silence fell over the land, absolute and unnatural, as if the very air refused to move. Her terrified Omega instinct screamed a simple command: turn back. But the past was a nightmare, and the only choice was to push forward. A wolf's deep, chest-rattling howl pierced the suffocating silence. It was close, bone-deep, and predatory. Lena froze. Then a blur of movement. To her right, a flash of emerald eyes. To her left, a low growl swallowed by the mist. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Panic clawed its way up her throat. She pushed herself to run faster. Branches whipped around her face. Heavy, impossibly fast footfalls closed the distance behind her. She never saw the slick route hidden beneath the snow. She hit the ground hard, the air driven violently from her lungs. Before she could even manage a gasp, a shadow loomed over her. Massive and utterly still. A man, cloaked in thick, dark fur and radiating a controlled, lethal fury, stood braced above her. Wolf-like eyes, the color of ancient jade, locked onto hers. A jagged, three-claw scar traced his cheekbone like a badge of war. He didn't speak. He simply inhaled, paused, and let out a growl, a single, guttural sound that wasn't meant for her ears, but for the untamed beast caged beneath his skin. Mate. Lena's scream died in her throat, and the savage Alpha's world, a fortress long ruled by silence and bloodshed, shattered in one breathtaking, furious instant. Her scent hit him like a punch, sweet, utterly unique, and soul-shaking, instantly dissolving years of carefully constructed solitude. The hunt was over, but the claiming had just begun. Chapter 2. Damon hadn't moved. He stood over the collapsed Omega, muscles rigid beneath his black cloak, breathing fast but tightly controlled. Her scent, a delicate, impossible blend of petrichor and sweet courage, now clung to him, unraveling the control he'd carved into himself with blood and isolation. She trembled beneath him, not just from the biting cold, but from sheer terror. His inner wolf raged, a beast torn between the primal instinct to seize and the brutal effort of restraint. Claim her. Mark her. Take her. Damon gritted his teeth and forced himself to take a single, agonizing step back, fighting the most fundamental urge he'd ever felt. Get up, he commanded, his tone gravelly and unaccustomed to any sort of softness. The girl flinched violently, as if he'd struck her. She didn't budge. Damon cursed silently and slowly crouched, making sure every deliberate movement was visible. Her eyes, a pale, stormy hazel, were wide, bruised, profoundly weary, but filled with something that nearly brought him to his knees. Fear, and not of the forest, but of him. You crossed my border, he stated flatly. No one does that by accident. Her lips parted, dry and cracked. I didn't mean to. I was running. From what? She looked away. Does it matter? It did. His wolf paced restlessly under his skin, its sensitive nose full of her wounded scent. It wasn't merely sweet, it was fractured, like something precious cracked under unbearable pressure. You'll freeze out here, he said gruffly, standing up. I'd rather freeze, she whispered, the quiet defiance stopping him cold. Damon slowly rose, his features hardening. Then, without another word, he ripped off his heavy fur cloak, a gift from his late father, and draped it carefully over her trembling shoulders. She blinked, stunned into silence. I won't touch you, he stated, backing away further. But I won't let you die either. He turned and began walking toward the darkest, narrow path that led deeper into the jagged mountains. When he didn't hear the sound of her following, he paused, glancing back over his shoulder. You coming, little wolf? For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, she slowly got to her feet, pulled the massive fur tighter, and followed. Damon's wolf inside let out a low, soft sigh. It had waited long enough. Chapter 3. The mountain path twisted like a striking serpent through black pines and fields of fractured stone. Snow whispered beneath Lena's borrowed boots, the sound muffled by the immense, heavy fur Damon had given her. She followed him in silence, her heart pounding louder than her cautious footsteps. He didn't speak, never turned around, just moved with the silent, immense power of something barely held in check. And still, she followed. At the very edge of the woods, nestled beneath an outcrop of sheer, forbidding cliffs, stood a fortress unlike any she could have imagined. Constructed of slate-dark stone and iron, it rose from the earth as if it were a natural, inevitable part of the landscape. Weather-beaten, eternal, and utterly imposing. 3 massive wolves flanked the iron gates, carved from deep gray obsidian, their eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Damon pushed open the doors with a guttural groan of metal. The interior was surprisingly cold, sparse, but not neglected. A vast great hall stretched ahead. A weak fire crackled in the ancient hearth, casting long, wavering shadows on the stone walls, which were lined with weapons and battle axes. Tapestries depicting clawed wolves and desperate ancient battles hung in the silence. A skeleton crew remained, a stoic healer, a few older guards, the silent ghosts of what once was a powerful pack. He led her down a long corridor, past mostly empty rooms and locked chambers, until they reached a smaller room with a thick fur rug, a simple cot, and a roaring, welcoming hearth. You can stay here, Damon said, not meeting her eyes. It's warm. Safe. Where is everyone? Lena asked, her voice small, a nervous thread. He paused in the doorway.
Gone.
Most died in the final conflict. A healer, 2 guards, and an old scout stayed loyal. Her stomach tightened at the weighty, resonant grief in his words. I'll bring food, he added, his jaw tight. You won't be locked in. As he turned to leave, Lena whispered, Why are you helping me? He stopped in the doorway, his hand braced against the cold stone frame. Then, almost too softly to hear, he replied, Because when my wolf scented you, it stopped roaring. He left her there, the firelight flickering across her face. Lena stood alone in the warm chamber, her heart tangled with fear and something far more dangerous, hope. For the first time in as long as she could remember, a door hadn't locked behind her. And for the first time, the mountain cold didn't feel quite so sharp. Chapter 4. The fortress slept in an eerie, deep silence. Lena sat near the hearth, Damon's oversized, heavy cloak still wrapped around her. The fire's gentle glow cast a faint amber light on her hands, thin, scarred, and trembling less now than they had before. Sleep came in fits and starts. Her body was too conditioned to vigilance, her mind still whispering warnings. She heard his footsteps before he appeared. Heavy, measured, and rigidly controlled. Damon entered carrying a simple wooden tray. The scent of roasted venison and warm root vegetables immediately filled the room, causing her stomach to clench with hunger.
He didn't speak.
He simply set the tray down on the small table and backed away, putting significant distance between them. She blinked at the space. You're not eating? I already did, he replied, the pause stretching uncomfortably. You don't have to stay, she said cautiously, picking up a piece of the warm bread. I'm not going to run. His mouth compressed into a thin line. I'm not here to guard you. I just didn't want you to eat alone. Her throat tightened at the unexpected, simple kindness. Her hands shook slightly as she tore off a piece of the savory bread. When he made absolutely no move to approach her, she asked the question that had relentlessly haunted her since the moment they met in the forest. "Why haven't you touched me?" His quicksilver, jade-green gaze met hers. Piercing, unreadable, and searing. "Because you're afraid," he said simply, the words a low rumble. "And because I'm not a monster." Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. "They say you are." "They say many things." She hesitated, then whispered, "Are they true?" Damon's tone dropped to something infinitely darker. "They're true enough. I've killed. I've ruled through necessary fear when my pack was destroyed. But I don't force what isn't freely given." His wolf stirred deeply beneath his skin, her pure, soft, and heartbreakingly broken scent maddening him. But he stood frozen in place, willing the bond's primal urge to stay dormant. "Thank you," she said after a long, profound silence. He nodded once, a sharp movement, then turned and left, closing the door gently behind him with a soft click. Lena slowly exhaled, her heart thudding, not from terror, but from a dizzying confusion. He was supposed to be cruel, rapacious, and demanding. Instead, he was silent, watchful, unexpectedly gentle, and her wolf, buried deep within her, whispered a single, forbidden word she refused to hear. Mate. Chapter 5. The next morning, the fortress felt more like a granite tomb than a home. Lena stepped into the corridor, still wrapped tightly in Damon's cloak, the cold stone floor shocking beneath her bare feet. The fire in her room had long since died, but the lingering scent of damp pine smoke clung to the heavy stone walls. She wandered carefully, unsure if exploration was permitted or expected. No one stopped her, mainly because so few remained to do so. Room after room stood mostly abandoned. Long, dust-coated banquet tables, empty armor stands left untouched, and portraits with slashed canvases and burned corners. Each space whispered of lives once lived and violently, suddenly lost. She found a locked door with severe claw marks gouged into the frame. Another door had dried, ominous blood staining the hinges. At the far end of the hall, she paused before a chamber that still smelled faintly of soft lavender and something inherently feminine. She didn't go inside. Instead, she turned back and almost collided with a woman. Older, sharp-eyed, with hair the color of woven snow and hands marked with healing salves. "You must be the Omega," the woman said, her tone clipped but not unkind. Lena stiffened slightly. "Who are you?" "I'm Inessa, the healer. The last of Damon's true inner circle." Lena relaxed just slightly. "Is he always like this?" Inessa gave her a long, thoughtful, professional look. "He wasn't once. Before the great betrayal. Before the war. Before his wolf turned dangerous." "What happened?" Lena asked softly. "He lost everyone at once." Inessa's eyes darkened with memory. "And his brother made certain that the pain never faded." Lena's lungs seized. "Torvin." Inessa nodded grimly.
Yes.
"And if he learns Damon has finally bonded, he will undoubtedly come." A chill swept down Lena's spine. Inessa took her hand gently. "You don't have to stay, but if you do, understand this. You're the first thing in years to truly calm Damon's wolf." Lena looked back down the hallway toward the room Damon had disappeared into. The fortress wasn't merely haunted by ghosts. It was kept standing by a man who hadn't let himself fall completely because some essential part of him had been patiently waiting for her. Chapter 6. Damon sat alone in the war room, the low firelight casting a deep red glow along the jagged scar on his jaw. Maps lay strewn across the table. Old patrol routes, faded enemy sigils, and dried bloodstains he had never bothered to scrub clean. But his eyes weren't on the maps. They were closed, and all he could truly breathe was her scent. Soft, clean, untouched, yet not naive. There was something deeper beneath the sweetness, a raw, aching pain buried so deep it had laced itself into her very essence. And that essence made the distance unbearable, because the more he smelled her, the more his wolf responded. Not with feral hunger, but with deep-seated recognition. "Mate," it whispered again, low and primal. Damon gripped the edge of the heavy table until the ancient wood cracked under his fingers. He couldn't take her. Not like this, not until she wanted it. But that scent, it clung to his skin. It haunted his every breath. Every frantic heartbeat now beat in quiet rhythm with hers. And he hadn't even touched her. The door creaked open. He turned sharply, but it was only Marius, his beta, tall and silent, his eyes razor-sharp. "She's walking the halls," Marius reported. No guards, no direct command. Damon didn't answer. Marius stepped closer. "You haven't claimed her." Damon's glare darkened dangerously. "I won't." Marius blinked. "You've waited years for this. For a scent that stabilizes you." "She's terrified of her own shadow," Damon snapped, his control fraying. "What kind of monster would I be if I simply added myself to her fears?" The room fell quiet. "She's not what they sent, Marius," he muttered. "She's light. Fragile." Marius studied him intently. "And yet you burn." Damon closed his eyes. "I burn because she's the only thing that calms me." Down the corridor, Lena stood silently outside the war room door, one hand pressed to the cold stone wall. She couldn't hear their exact words, but she didn't need to. His scent was thick in the air, storm-wild, barely controlled, wrapped in a palpable longing. And for the first time, her fear didn't surge. Something else did. A question, not what is he, but what am I to him? Chapter 7. The snow had stopped completely by morning, leaving the world outside silver and perfectly still. Lena stood in the main courtyard, wrapped tightly in Damon's oversized cloak, staring up at the distant, jagged mountains beyond the protective wall. Her breathing misted in the brutal cold. The silence around her wasn't oppressive today. It was oddly, profoundly peaceful. Behind her, the fortress door opened slowly. She didn't need to turn. She knew instantly it was him. Damon's presence filled the air before his voice ever did. "You'll freeze." "I'm used to it," she murmured, watching her breath plume. He stepped beside her, maintaining a careful, agonized distance. His emerald eyes never left the horizon. They stood in shared silence, two profoundly wounded creatures pretending not to ache for connection. "You're not what I expected," she said softly. "Good," Damon muttered, his voice barely audible. Lena tilted her head toward him. "You won't touch me."
You won't order me.
"You barely speak, and yet," she met his gaze, slowly, wearily, "I don't feel unsafe." That confession did something powerful to him. His throat worked, but no sound came out. Then, his words, roughened with undeniable emotion. "Do you want me to touch you?" Lena's pulse stuttered violently. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, uncertain, but undeniably curious. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. Damon's eyes closed, his voice shaking with effort. "Then I won't. Not until you say yes. Not until you ask." The dormant bond flared powerfully between them, thick with unspoken, primal hunger. Her scent pulsed with a new warmth, awakening a protective instinct in him so violent his hands trembled to keep them still. But before either could move, a deep, resonant horn echoed from the northern watchtower. Damon stiffened instantly. Footsteps approached fast. It was Marius, snow clinging to his cloak and blood smudging his knuckles. Scout spotted a sigil near the pass. He growled, chest heaving. "Torvin's banner." Lena's blood ran suddenly cold. Damon turned to her, something ancient and terrifying igniting in his wolf-bright stare. "He's coming." She didn't have to ask who. She already knew. The man who once owned her. The man Damon had vowed to kill. The brother who had deliberately destroyed everything Damon once held dear. Chapter 8. Damon slammed the war room door shut behind him, his teeth clenched, his jade eyes burning with controlled fury. Lena stood near the hearth, frozen, the echo of Marius's words, Torvin, still ringing in her ears. Even the name made her skin crawl with phantom dread. Damon didn't speak at first. He paced like a storm barely held back, his wolf prowling just beneath the surface of his skin. Finally, he turned to her. "You knew him," he said, the statement not a question. Lena nodded once. "I belong to him." The silence in the room was suffocating. "I was taken at 13, she continued, her voice hollow and dead. He called it a gift. Said my scent was rare, that I'd calm his wolf. But I never did. For 5 years, I lived in his compound." Damon's hands curled into massive, shaking fists. "He never marked me," she added quickly, needing him to know. "He wanted to wait until I submitted completely." Damon's growl rumbled deep and low in his chest. "And did you?"
No.
Her chin lifted slightly, a spark of defiance. "I ran before he could break me." He crossed the room in 2 long strides, careful not to touch her, but close enough that she could feel the powerful heat radiating from his body. "I should have torn his throat out years ago," he whispered, the words laced with violence. Lena looked up at him, something unreadable flickering in her gaze. "Why didn't you?" Damon's tone hardened with remembered pain. "Because he was blood. My half-brother. And killing him would have cost my pack everything I had left." She blinked. Damon exhaled slowly. "But I don't have a pack anymore.
Just this place."
And you." The fire snapped behind them, throwing flickers of light across his deeply scarred face. "I don't want your fear," he said softly, looking into her soul. "I want your choice, and I'll kill anyone who tries to take it from you again." Air trapped in Lena's throat, not from terror, but from something entirely different. For the first time, she believed it wasn't just his wolf that claimed her. It was him. Damon turned away before she could answer, his words low and final. "You'll stay in the inner rooms guarded. No one enters unless I bleed first." He walked out, his shoulders tight, with controlled fury. And for the first time, Lena didn't feel like prey. She felt protected. Chapter 9. The violent storm rolled in without warning, sleet pounding relentlessly against the stone walls. The wind howled like 10,000 white wolves in mourning. Inside the fortress, the hearth flames burned hotter, casting long, wavering shadows that danced across the tapestries. Damon stood at the edge of his private balcony, his cloak whipping fiercely behind him, his eyes fixed on the tree line. He hadn't slept since Torvin's banner had been spotted. His wolf stalked within him, restless, demanding one thing. It didn't care for war strategies or alliances. It cared only for the trembling Omega asleep somewhere within his fortress. Claim her, protect her, keep her. But Damon had seen what obsession did. He had watched Torvin break Omegas like glass in the name of possession. He would never become that. Still, her scent filled every corridor. A quiet sweetness laced with defiance and something new. Courage. A door creaked open. He turned sharply, ready to dismiss Marius, only to find her. Lena stood in the doorway of his chamber, barefoot, the firelight catching the auburn strands of her hair. She didn't flinch at his intense gaze this time. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. Damon's tone was a graveled hush. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." He stared at her, unsure whether to step closer or violently back away. She took a single, deliberate step toward him. "I'm not here to offer myself," she said quickly, sensing his turmoil. I need to know if staying here will put you at risk." He blinked. "Me? You said he's your brother," she murmured. "That means Torvin will come for both of us." His features hardened. "Let him come." Lena hesitated. "What if your wolf? What if you can't control it?" He stepped forward, slow and deliberate, closing the distance she feared. "Then you speak my name. Not his. Not anyone else's. Mine." She didn't retreat. Instead, she whispered, "Damon." And his wolf stilled instantly. Just like that. Her voice, small but certain, anchored him in place. Neither of them moved, but something fundamental shifted between them. And this time Lena didn't feel like prey. She felt like power. Chapter 10. The storm quieted by dawn, leaving the world outside cloaked in soft, pristine ice. But inside Damon's chamber, something far more fragile had finally thawed. Lena hadn't slept. Neither had Damon. They stood in heavy silence by the hearth, the only sounds the crackle of the burning wood and the shared, steady rhythm of their breathing. He hadn't moved since she said his name. She hadn't left. Damon's arms were crossed, his fists clenched tight at his sides. His control had frayed in the long night, his wolf pacing just beneath the surface. Her scent, so near, so willing, tormented him. Yet he hadn't touched her, wouldn't, unless she asked. And then she did. "I want to understand," she whispered, her words a trembling thread of courage. "Not everything. Just what it feels like to not fear this." She stepped closer, uncertain, but deliberate. "May I?" Damon's throat worked, thick with emotion. "Yes." Slowly, Lena raised her hand and pressed it firmly to his chest. Not to his arm, not to the safety of leather or cloak.
To him.
To the heat of his skin beneath the layers, over the heart that thundered inside the man the world called dangerous. Damon's breathing stuttered, ragged and shallow. Her fingers were cold, but her touch was warm, light as snowfall, and just as disarming. Her eyes met his. Nothing in her gaze said submission. Everything in it said choice. And for the first time, Damon's wolf didn't roar. It sighed, soft and deep, like a formidable beast finally seen and understood. He closed his large hand gently around hers, not to pull, not to possess, just to feel the contact. "You make the rules," he said, his voice raw with feeling. "I only follow." A tear slipped down Lena's cheek, not from fear, but from profound relief. He hadn't broken her walls. He had waited for her to open them. Outside, the wind shifted. Far to the north, Torvin's forces began to move with purpose. But inside the den of the savage Alpha, trust had finally been born. Not with dominance, but with patience and the softest, most fragile touch in the world. Chapter 11. The fortress gates groaned open slowly at dawn, revealing a single rider cloaked in white, bearing the wax seal of the Alpha High Council. Marius accepted the heavy scroll with suspicion, handing it to Damon in the war room moments later. His Alpha sliced the ribbon with a clawed thumbnail, his eyes sharp as a freshly honed blade. Lena watched from a dim corner, wrapped in furs, her fingers clutching the teacup Anessa had given her. As Damon read, the temperature in the room seemed to drop drastically. He folded the parchment slowly, deliberately. "Torvin has summoned the council." Marius stiffened instantly. "On what grounds?" Damon's tone was calm.
Too calm.
"He claims I'm sheltering a bonded Omega who was once marked as his possession." Lena's blood ran cold. "I was never marked," she whispered instantly. "Doesn't matter," Damon muttered, his gaze on the scroll. "If he's rallied the council, he'll push for a purity trial. Demand I present you. They'll test your scent, your bond, your body," Marius added grimly. "They'll dress it up in ceremony, but it's nothing short of a hunt." Marius slammed his fist on the table. "They'll never touch her." Damon turned to Lena, his eyes haunted. "They'll demand you submit to their examination. If I refuse, they'll stir my claim and come for you anyway." Silence pressed around them. Finally, Lena stood slowly, still trembling. "Then what do we do?" Damon looked at her, not as a fragile thing, but as a partner. "We make a choice," he said. "Hide you or fight?" Her lips parted. "If we hide, they'll think I'm guilty. And if we fight," he said quietly, a shadow of a smile touching his lips, "they'll make you prove you're not." A heavy, absolute silence fell over the room. Finally, Lena spoke, her voice clear. "Then let them come." Damon blinked once. "What?" "If they want a trial," she whispered, her resolve firming, "they'll see me standing, not cowering." He stared at her, profound pride and raw fear battling in his mercury jade gaze. "You were never meant to be hidden," he said, the words like thunder wrapped in reverence. She stepped to his side, no longer shaking. "And you were never meant to fight alone." Chapter 12. The council arrived at dusk. 7 imposing alphas in ceremonial, bone-white armor. Their inner wolves strained beneath skins perfumed heavily with dominance and the stench of politics. They didn't bow when Damon greeted them. He hadn't expected them to. The leader, Lord Silas, stepped forward, gray-bearded and cold-eyed. You claim the Omega as your mate, yet she bears no mark of your bond. She bears my choice, Damon said flatly, his stance unyielding. Then let us verify her. The words rang in the hall, like a blade unsheathed. Lena stood silently behind Damon in the great hall, her spine ramrod straight despite the small tremor in her limbs. She wore the simple white shift they demanded, her hair braided back, no cosmetics, no scent-masking oils. Only herself. Her wolf trembled beneath her skin, but not entirely from fear, from memory. 3 council members approached, instructed not to touch, but to assess her scent from a measured distance, like seasoned wolves inspecting prey. Damon's fists clenched at his sides. Lord Silas gestured forward. Step into the circle, Omega. Lena obeyed, walking into the center of the cold stone floor. One by one, they circled her slowly, inhaling, assessing, whispering among themselves. Untouched, no false bond, but something else. A rare sweetness, stabilizing, comforting. Damon's mouth compressed. That was what Torvin had always truly wanted. Her sense effect, its ability to soothe even the most dangerously feral of wolves. That included him. When Silas turned back to Damon, his tone sharpened. Do you claim her still, despite her lack of mark? Damon didn't flinch. I do. And, do you swear your control remains intact? That you did not coerce her scent into blooming for you? Lena stepped forward before Damon could answer. I came here by accident, she said clearly, startling the council. But I stayed by choice. This bond isn't forced. It's earned. Gasps rippled through the assembled room. The council hadn't expected her to speak. They certainly hadn't expected her to defy them. Silas's gaze narrowed dangerously. Then let the gods test your word. If your bond is true, it will deepen under stress. Damon's wolf surged beneath his skin. Stress meant threat, and Damon knew exactly what was coming next. A challenge, not by ritual, but by force. Chapter 13. The council's decree rang across the Frostchill Hall. To prove your claim, Alpha Damon must face a challenger, one chosen by this council. If your bond is real, your wolf will fight not from rage, but from absolute purpose. Air trapped in Lena's throat. She knew their game. They wanted to provoke Damon, to draw the beast out completely. If he lost control, their claim to invalidate the mating would be justified. Damon stepped forward, his jade-bright eyes gleaming with dangerous intelligence. Name the challenger. From behind Silas, a young alpha stepped into the ring, lean, fast, his wolf practically vibrating with eager anticipation. His name was Garth, a pup from the Southern Teeth, trained specifically for speed and blood sport. This is madness, Marius hissed low to Damon. You're twice his size, but they want him to goad your wolf into a frenzy. One wrong move. I know, Damon growled back. Lena gripped the edge of the platform, her heart pounding a terrifying rhythm. The hall emptied quickly to form a wide, expectant circle. Fires blazed. The scent of anticipation and dominance hung heavy in the air. Damon stripped off his cloak. His scars gleamed wickedly in the firelight. Garth cracked his knuckles, grinning like a fool eager for bloodshed. The signal came. Garth struck first. Fast, vicious, aiming straight for Damon's throat. Damon dodged, barely. The younger alpha pressed forward, slashing, taunting. Heard your Omega cried in the night, Damon. Couldn't keep her quiet, could you? Damon didn't answer with words. He ducked low, drove a hard fist into Garth's exposed ribs, then stepped back. His wolf howled internally, mark.
Protect. Kill.
But he didn't. He held every movement precise, controlled. Lena saw the razor-thin war in his eyes. He fought to protect her, not just with strength, but with restraint. Finally, Damon caught Garth's throat and slammed him to the ground hard, but he didn't finish it. He stepped back, breathing heavily. I don't need to kill to prove my bond, he growled, staring down at the wheezing pup. Only a coward does. The room went still. Lord Silas slowly rose, his face unreadable. Bond recognized. Lena's knees nearly gave out as a powerful wave of relief washed over her. Damon didn't look at the council. He looked only at her, not as a prize won, but as a silent vow kept. Chapter 14. The sound of boots echoed through the hall, slow, deliberate, confident. Torvin had finally arrived. Lena turned as the crowded assembly parted for the newcomer. Tall, handsome in a cruel, predatory way, dressed in obsidian leather trimmed with gold. His eyes, pale blue and sharp, swept over the room and landed directly on her. His smirk was slow, predatory. "So you did survive, little ghost." Damon stepped instantly in front of her before Torvin could take another step. Torvin raised a perfectly sculpted brow. "No greeting for your brother, Damon? You forfeited that title the moment you touched her." Lena stiffened at the implication. "Touched?" Torvin's tone turned syrupy sweet. "Oh, no, little wolf. I claimed her. She was mine. Unmarked, yes, but that doesn't change what was promised. Her scent was pure, valuable, strong enough to stabilize even a cursed wolf." "You mean you," Damon said coldly. "The one your own pack had to sedate for years." Torvin's smile vanished completely. "You want her for power," Damon continued, his voice ringing with conviction. "Not love, not even desire, just control." "Don't pretend you're different," Torvin hissed, furious. "You feel it too, that pull. You think because she chose you, it makes you better?" Lena stepped out from behind Damon, her voice steady and clear. "He didn't chain me or break me. He waited." Torvin's gaze sharpened, malice replacing hunger. "So this is your rebellion, choosing a half-feral alpha over a prince." "She chose freedom," Damon stated simply. Silas lifted a hand, anxious to regain control. "This dispute is political now. Torvin requests judgment. His claim predates yours." Lena paled slightly. Damon bared his teeth. "He has no mark on her, no bond. She was a child." Silas looked between the two, an uneasy expression on his face. "Then let the gods judge under moonlight. Let both alphas bring their wolves. Let the bond reveal itself. A trial of wolves." Damon nodded once. "So be it." Torvin's gaze flicked to Lena, hunger laced with profound malice. "One way or another, little mate. You'll kneel." Lena met his stare, unflinching. "Never again." Damon placed a hand gently on her back, guiding her away. This wasn't just about claiming anymore. It was about cleansing. Chapter 15. Moonrise fell over the frost-fallen courtyard like an unyielding verdict. Torches ringed the packed snow, casting stark light on the sacred stone circle where dominance, truth, and blood were tested. Above, the full moon glared, cold, ancient, impartial. Lena stood at the very edge of the ring, wrapped in white, silent, watching, waiting. Damon stood bare-chested, his scars a roadmap of old wars, his quicksilver eyes locked onto the figure across from him, Torvin. He had stripped his civility like armor. His wolf coiled beneath his skin, snarling at the promise of violence. Lord Silas raised his staff. "Let instinct decide what words cannot. When the moon breaks the clouds, your wolves will rise. The stronger bond will survive." Damon exhaled, his breath misting heavily in the cold air. He could feel his wolf, tight, furious, fiercely protective, but he couldn't afford rage.
Not now.
Not with Lena watching. Across the circle, Torvin smirked. "Ready to lose your other half, brother?" Damon didn't answer. The clouds parted. The moon broke through. Both alphas shifted simultaneously. Fur exploded. Bones cracked. Snarls ripped into the night. Damon's wolf was massive, midnight dark with prominent white streaks and eyes of molten steel. Torvin's was leaner, all speed and cruelty, its coat like a frost-burned flame. They collided. Claws slashed, teeth snapped, and the pristine snow instantly turned red. Torvin was fast, vicious, but Damon was anchored. His wolf wasn't just fighting for dominance. It was fighting for her. Every time Torvin feinted toward the edge, toward Lena, Damon answered with controlled, devastating precision, driving him back toward the center. The crowd howled, and then Torvin bit Damon's shoulder, hard enough to draw a gush of blood. Lena flinched. Damon didn't. He twisted free and slammed his brother down, his claws poised at Torvin's exposed neck. He could kill him, end this entire nightmare. But instead he stepped back. Let the council see he wouldn't win through death. Only the truth. Damon's wolf turned to Lena, and she stepped forward, moonlight shimmering across her face as she whispered, "Come back to me." Damon shifted back, trembling, bloodied, but miraculously whole. Torvin didn't rise. Silas spoke, his voice heavy with finality. The bond has chosen. And this time, no one argued. Chapter 16. The aftermath of the trial settled over Frostfang like quiet snowfall, deceptive, but laced with lingering tension. Torvin had been carried away, conscious but utterly defeated, escorted by his remaining wolves under heavy council guard. The tribunal dispersed at dawn, their verdict final. Damon's bond with Lena was true. But truth didn't silence danger. Inessa found Lena in the healing chambers later that morning, watching Damon sleep. His wounds were deep, though already beginning to knit cleanly. "You should rest," Inessa murmured softly. Lena shook her head. "I can't. Not while he's like this." The healer knelt beside her, her ancient eyes soft with knowledge. "You love him." Lena hesitated, then nodded. Inessa studied her carefully. "You need to know your scent is not just rare. It's legend." Lena blinked, confused.
What?
Inessa retrieved a weathered, brittle scroll from her satchel. She unrolled it, revealing a faded crest, two wolves entwined beneath a crescent moon. This symbol belonged to a bloodline long thought extinct. Omegas born under the eclipse moon. Their scent could balance feral wolves, calm madness, heal broken bonds. Lena stared, her heart pounding. "But I'm not." "You are," Inessa said gently. "Your mother was one. She vanished before the war, likely hid you, maybe didn't even know what she was carrying." Lena realized the horrifying truth. "That's why Torvin wanted me. Why Damon's wolf only responds to you." Inessa nodded. "It's not magic, it's instinct. But if others find out, they'll try to control you," Inessa said softly. "Or destroy you if they cannot." Lena looked at Damon, pale and scarred, even in sleep. "I won't run again," she whispered, her resolve hardened. "Not this time." Inessa placed a warm hand over hers. "Then you must be ready. Because Torvin was the beginning, not the end." Lena stood slowly. She wasn't just Damon's mate now. She was something older, rarer. The next storm was coming, but this time she would meet it with claws of her own. Chapter 17. The letter arrived at midday, carried by a raven cloaked in gray silk. Damon read it in silence, standing in the war room beside Marius. Lena entered just as he lowered the parchment, his features set in stone. "What is it?" she asked, immediately sensing the tension. Marius scowled. "Council summons." Damon's words were low. "They're holding a formal tribunal for Torvin in the capital." Lena's lungs seized. "They want you to testify." Damon nodded. "Both as alpha and bloodkin. I'm to speak on whether Torvin's crimes warrant permanent exile or death." Inessa's lips thinned. "And the trap." Damon handed the letter to Lena. She read the final lines aloud, her voice shaking slightly. "The Omega Lena shall not accompany the Alpha to the capital. Her presence will disrupt balance and provoke instability among bonded courts." Marius growled in contempt. "Cowards. They fear what she represents." "They want to separate us," Damon said, quiet fury in every syllable. "Isolate me. Prove they still control our fate." Lena's throat tightened. "Will you go?" "I have to," Damon replied. "If I refuse, they'll rule in Torvin's favor by default. It'll be seen as weakness or worse, guilt." Silence pressed around them. Finally, Lena stepped forward. "Then I'll stay, but only if you promise one thing." Damon turned to her, his eyes heavy. "Promise me you'll return." He took her hand, pressing it to his chest, over the scar, over the heartbeat that belonged to her now. I will return, he said with fire, even if I must burn the capital to the ground. That night, Lena stood at the gates as Damon rode out with Marius and a small escort. Snow fell gently, and though she did not cry, the mark beneath her skin, silent and hidden, ached with the distance. He was heading toward politics sharpened into blades. If they tried to break him again, she would burn down every council hall to bring him home. Her training would begin tomorrow. The Luna of Frostfang would not wait defenseless. Chapter 18. The days stretched cold and empty without Damon. Lena moved through the vast halls of Frostfang like a queen in mourning, silent, watchful, never idle. She walked the perimeter daily, memorizing the mountain's intricate defenses, trained with Marius's remaining warriors in secret, and listened intently to Inessa's counsel. But every night, she returned alone to the Alpha's den. His powerful scent lingered on the furs. So did the bond's deep, rhythmic ache. She clutched the stone Damon had left behind, a polished obsidian talisman etched with their crest, and whispered to it like a prayer. Come back to me. On the fourth night, the gates sounded an unexpected alarm. A lone rider collapsed just inside the warding lines, bloodied, half-conscious, and marked with the crest of Damon's old pack. The guards brought him to the infirmary, and Lena was there before he even opened his eyes. He blinked up at her, recognition flashing in his glazed gaze. You're the Luna. She didn't correct him. He coughed blood. They're not just trying to convict Torvin. They're laying groundwork for Damon's removal, whispering that his bond has made him weak, tame. Lena's stomach turned to ice. Who sent you? No one. The man rasped, pain etched on his face. I owed Damon a life debt from the war. I thought it was repaid until I saw what they were planning. Lena's pulse raced. Will they kill him?
Not yet, he said.
But if they can't shame him politically, they'll provoke him, make him lose control. And if that fails, there are whispers of poison. Inessa stepped forward, alarmed. You need to rest. No time, the man groaned, struggling against the pain. They've already dispatched a shadow envoy. He looked directly at Lena. Not to him.
To you.
Lena's blood ran cold. They mean to take you quietly, he finished, his voice fading, while his back is turned. The room fell silent. Then, Lena stood straighter than before, her eyes burning with resolve. Let them come, she said, her voice steady. This time I won't hide. I'll meet them at the gates. Because she was no longer prey. She was the Luna of Frostfang, and she had learned to bite back. Chapter 19. They came at midnight, silent, precise, dressed like shadows, reeking of ashroot and bitterroot, professional scent suppressants.
Deadly.
But Frostfang had changed. So had its Luna. Lena stood barefoot in the war room when the alarms failed to ring. She had felt the shift. Too quiet. Too still. Wolves don't need sirens when their instincts scream. She moved fast, Damon's cloak flying behind her, the obsidian talisman around her neck. The remaining guards were already waiting in the northern hall, swords drawn. They breached the east wing. One growled. 2 packs, maybe more. Coordinated. They're after me, Lena said, her voice steady. Lure them where we want. The guard blinked. You're the target. I'm also the trap. Before anyone could protest, she was gone, slipping into the tunnels beneath the fortress, the old mining shafts that Damon had once mapped by memory. She lit no torch. Her wolf didn't need one. The assassins followed scent trails laid by false decoys, cloaks soaked in her oils, hidden under beds and doors. But Lena waited patiently in the chapel ruins where the moonlight cut sharply through shattered stone and the silence pulsed like a frantic heartbeat. When the first assassin entered, a dark shape, his blade glinting ominously, Lena struck. Her dagger plunged into his side, not lethal, but loud. His sharp scream drew the others. They poured in, expecting fear. They found fury. The remaining guards crashed in from behind, flanking with silent, deadly precision. The chapel instantly became a cage. By dawn, it was over. Blood soaked the ancient floor. Lena stood in the center, breathing hard, miraculously untouched save for a minor cut. A guard approached, wiping his blade on his sleeve. You were supposed to draw them out, Luna. Not take the first one yourself. I needed to know I could, she said, her voice echoing. And she had. The trembling Omega was gone. In her place stood a Luna forged by fire, no longer just Damon's, but Frostfang's. A howl rose from the cliffs, not mourning, but a ferocious warning. Come again and face the teeth of the mountain. Chapter 20. The council hall of elders loomed like a granite tomb. Damon stood alone before the crescent dais, scarred, blood still seeping from wounds barely a week old. His quicksilver eyes burned with defiance, but his posture was regal, unshaken. He would not bow. Lord Malrich, now presiding High Elder, leaned forward, his expression severe. You were summoned to testify regarding your half-brother's crimes. Instead, you arrived bloodied, without escort, and with a stench of rebellion in your wake. Damon said nothing, allowing the silence to stretch. Malrich sneered. Do you deny that your claimed mate, the Omega, known as Lena, incited violence in Frostfang? She defended her life. Damon replied coldly, his voice echoing, against assassins sent by someone in this chamber. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Malrich bared his teeth in a snarl. Mind your tongue, rogue. You stand here by grace, not by right. I stand because I earned it. In blood, in exile, in battle, his tone thundered. And I will not let you rewrite the truth. A second elder rose, uneasy. Then speak it. Is she your mated bond? Damon looked toward the high windows where the pale moonlight filtered in, unwavering. Yes. Do you intend to mark her officially? Yes. Then hear this final decree. Malrich stood, slamming his staff. Should you bind yourself to her, this eclipse, your claim to alpha sovereignty will be revoked, your title stripped. You will be no more than a rogue in the wild. The hall fell into stunned silence. Damon's mouth compressed. They wanted obedience. They wanted fear. But they had chosen the wrong wolf. I do not need your crown, he said, his words low and thunderous. I will burn it for kindling before I let you dictate my bond. You choose the Omega over the realm? Malrich asked, stunned into disbelief. Damon's eyes gleamed with dangerous conviction. I choose her. She is my realm. A storm of outrage followed, but he simply turned and walked from the chamber, unbroken. Outside, Marius waited anxiously. They'll declare you rogue. Damon mounted his horse. Then let them hunt me. Because this war was no longer about politics. It was about love. And the exiled king had made his final choice. Chapter 21. The moment Damon crossed Frostfang's outer border, the howl went up, not of alarm, but of a fierce, protective welcome. He rode hard through the mountain pass, his cloak snapping behind him, the snow thick beneath his horse's hooves. The fortress came into view, taller, stronger than before. Watchtowers reinforced. Guard lines doubled. He blinked. Then the iron gates opened, and Lena stood at the center. Her hood was thrown back. Her auburn hair was braided in the Luna's weave, layered with silver thread. Around her neck glowed the obsidian talisman he had given her. She was no longer waiting. She was leading. Damon dismounted quickly as she crossed to him without hesitation. You're early, she said softly, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. You're ready, he murmured back, taking in her steady gaze. I had to be. He took her hand in his. They've stripped my title, branded me rogue. Any pack that harbors me commits treason. Lena didn't flinch. Then, I suppose Frostfang is a den of traitors. He stared at her, emotion tightening his features. You don't have to choose this. I already did, she said, when I put a blade in an assassin's ribs. When I stood in that chapel and faced wolves who came to kill me. When I stayed. Around them, wolves gathered. Warriors, healers, servants, betas. None bowed. Instead, one by one, they placed their fists over their hearts, to her, to him, to them. Marius approached last. You may not be Alpha anymore, Damon, but you're still ours. And she's earned every howl. Damon turned to Lena, his words low and choked with reverence. "They'll come for us." Lena met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "Let them." He exhaled slowly, then knelt. Not before the pack, but before her. "Then, Luna of Frostfang, will you bind yourself to a rogue king?" She cupped his face, her touch steady. "Only if you promise never to kneel again." He stood, his lips finding hers under the watchful, cold moon. And the fortress howled, not in mourning, but in fierce, joyous allegiance. Frostfang no longer bowed to the council. It bowed to love. Chapter 22. The sacred chamber was carved deep into the mountain's heart. Stone walls lined with ancient wolf sigils, candles flickering like captured stardust. It had not been used in decades, not since Frostfang last witnessed a true mating bond. Now it would hold history. Lena stood before the moonlight basin, robed in shimmering silver silk. Her pulse was steady, but her thoughts raced. Tonight wasn't just a ritual. It was a vow, one no council or political decree could ever erase. Damon entered, wearing ceremonial leather marked with ancient runes. The scars across his chest glowed faintly in the candlelight. He looked more wolf than man, untamed, reverent, and utterly focused. "You're sure?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. She nodded, meeting his gaze. "There's nothing left to fear." They stepped into the basin circle. The remaining elders of Frostfang stood watch, but said nothing. No one officiated. The bond would speak for itself. Damon took her hands in his. "This isn't just about power or defiance." "I know," she whispered. "It's about you." His tone dropped to a possessive growl. "And how my wolf only sleeps when you're near." Lena's lips curved into a soft, genuine smile. "Then stay near forever." He leaned forward, brushing his forehead to hers. The bond flared, heat and ice, stars and roots. It wasn't fire. It was recognition. Their hidden marks pulsed simultaneously, matching, complete. The mating bond was sealed. The fortress howled in celebration. But above, a raven stirred. Not mountain-bred, but council-marked. In the upper rafters, a figure hidden in heavy priest's robes tightened his grip on the blade strapped to his thigh. The bond was too strong now to break by distance. Only death could sever it. He moved, silent as dust, slipping through the ventilation tunnels toward Damon's den, where Lena would sleep after the ceremony. He didn't need to kill her, just cut her. Let her blood prove that rogues could never protect what they loved. But Frostfang had changed, and the Luna he stalked was no longer prey. She had learned to hunt. Chapter 23. The moon had long passed its peak when Lena stirred in Damon's massive den. Cold air crept along the stone floor.
Wrong.
Unnatural. Her eyes opened just as the shadow moved, slow, silent, approaching the bed. Steel glinted in the faint light. Instinct roared. She rolled, grabbing the ceremonial dagger from beneath the pillows where she'd placed it. The assassin lunged, slicing through the heavy blankets where she had just been. Lena's training with the guards surged forward. She ducked low, slashed upward, cutting deeply across the man's forearm. He hissed, staggering back. "You're supposed to be asleep," he snarled, rage mixing with pain. "I've spent too many years sleeping through danger," she snapped back, her voice steady despite the rush of adrenaline. Damon's absence was immediate, his warmth, his powerful protection, but she was still here, and she had teeth. The assassin struck again, a low, vicious swipe, but Lena blocked with a chair leg, driving it into his gut. He crashed backward into the wall. She didn't wait. She ran toward the corridor, screaming for the guards. The hall flared with torches. Marius arrived first, blade drawn, his eyes widening at the sight of her bloodied arm and the figure charging after her. He didn't hesitate. One throw. Steel buried itself deep in the man's throat. The assassin dropped without a sound. Lena stood panting, staring at the lifeless body. Marius approached slowly. "Are you hurt?" She nodded once, but not badly. He glanced at the dagger still in her grip. "You defended yourself." "I protected what matters," she said, looking toward the bond mark etched into her skin, warm, unbroken, pulsing faintly with Damon's distant heartbeat. Marius's expression shifted from concern to profound respect. "He'll kill whoever sent that man," he said, his voice grim. "No," Lena said quietly, wiping the sweat from her brow. "We will." Because this wasn't an isolated attack. It was war, and she would fight beside her mate, blade in hand, shoulders squared. They had tried to kill the Luna, but they had only awakened the wolf inside her. And this wolf had learned to bite back. Chapter 24. Damon rode into Frostfang under a blood-colored dawn. He had felt it through the bond, a flash of pain, a rush of adrenaline, then a tense silence. Not death, but danger. He hadn't waited for permission to leave the capital, hadn't explained his exit. He had simply vanished from their polished halls like smoke and shadow, returning to the only place that mattered, his home, his mate. He burst into the fortress, Marius at his side. The scent of blood hit him first, fresh, sharp, metallic. Not hers, but close. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "In the council hall," Marius said. "Alive." "More than alive," Marius replied grimly. "Go see." Damon entered the hall with his wolf pressing just beneath his skin, ready to tear the room apart, and stopped instantly. Lena stood at the head of the long table, dressed in black leathers, her injured arm freshly bandaged, her eyes storm-steady. Before her lay the assassin's cloak and blade, evidence of treachery. Behind her stood half the pack, weapons in hand, faces solemn and resolute. She turned slowly. "You came." He strode to her, cupping her face, frantically scanning her for hidden injuries. "He touched you." "Not for long," she murmured. His features hardened with barely suppressed violence. "I should have been here." "You taught me to survive," she said, pulling his hand down to his chest. "Now let me help you finish this." He stared into her eyes, no fear, no fragility, only fury, fire, and loyalty. She stepped forward, her words clear and ringing. "The council thinks they can kill us quietly, strip us slowly. But they've forgotten who we are." Her gaze swept the assembled pack. "We are wolves, and they will hear our howls in their golden halls." The warriors roared their agreement. Damon smiled, slow and dangerous. "I left as a rogue," he said, gripping her hand tightly. Lena lifted his arm, displaying the unbroken bond mark. "And now," she said, "you ride beside your Luna." Together, they turned to their people. "Prepare the packs," Damon commanded, his voice thunderous. "We march on the capital." Because this wasn't a rebellion. This was justice with teeth. And the savage queen would lead them. No longer hidden, no longer afraid, ready to reclaim what was theirs. Chapter 25. The capital gates never closed until Frostfang approached. 600 strong. Wolves in formation, banners snapping fiercely in the wind. At the front rode Damon, no longer cloaked in exile, but flanked by his fiercest warriors and his Luna, Lena. She wore armor trimmed in moonstone, her mark visible, her eyes unflinching. She did not ride behind him. She rode beside him. The council met them in the grand forum, guards flanking every marble pillar. High Elder Malrich stood at the center, already scowling with deep disapproval. "You come in force." "We come with truth," Damon replied, his voice calm. "And law," Lena added, her voice strong. "The law of the bond, the one you tried to break with steel." Malrich sneered. "You expect forgiveness for insubordination?" "I expect nothing," Damon said. "Because we're done asking." Lena stepped forward and unsheathed the assassin's blade, throwing it down to the council's feet with a heavy clink. "You sent death into our home." "That cannot be proven," Malrich snapped, his voice shaking. But another voice rose. From the shadows stepped Anessa, healer of Frostfang. Behind her, the surviving assassin's brother, a council scout, limped forward, shame etched on his face. "I saw the orders," he rasped. "I followed them until I saw what they truly were." Silence. Malrich paled visibly. Damon bared his teeth in a true wolf snarl. "This council is no longer worthy to lead." Gasps rose, but none dared interrupt when Lena raised her voice, her words ringing in the vast space. You call me weak because I am Omega, but I withstood cages, assassins, and council blades. I walked into your court without armor, and still I did not bow. Her eyes burned with righteous fire. So tell me, who truly leads? Behind them, the white wolves of Frostfang howled their agreement. It wasn't a rebellion. It was a rebirth. The council faltered, then knelt, not to power, but to the truth standing in front of them, bonded, whole, and utterly unshakable. Damon turned to Lena. You once asked if my soul knew your name. She smiled, tears welling in her eyes. And he leaned close. It will never forget. And under the watchful moon, he claimed her again, not with claws but with a kiss. Not savage, not broken, just theirs forever. She had found her alpha, and together they would rewrite the laws of the North. If you enjoyed the full journey of Lena and Damon, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next epic chapter of the Savage Queen's reign.